Thank you very much, Yash, for that wonderful introduction. And welcome everyone to this virtual event. And thank you for the opportunity to be presenting some of our thoughts over the next 10 to 15 minutes that I'm going to be sharing a few slides with you. So we've gone through a period of lockdown, which has been extremely demanding on all our infrastructure and the people. And as we emerge out of the lockdown, we have to get into a new situation where we are able to enable businesses, leverage technology to the full, and take our businesses to the next level. As we consider this kind of a new normal, what does it mean? What are the business imperatives? And we look at it from four different dimensions. The first one is everyone needs to get back to business as early as possible and get back the lost revenue. But definitely the most important thing is how do we reach out to customers? So building alternate business models, building engagement models with customers, leveraging technology, and managing the paradox of social distancing, but at the same time getting closer to customer demands a lot of digitalization of the customer reach. So that's the first point. The second one is in terms of getting the business continuity and the operations right. Because when the infrastructure was put under stress during the course of this pandemic, that was the time when we realized some of us did not have enough stress testing done on their infrastructure, as well as we did not build sufficient safeguards for the necessities of this kind of a demand. So getting the business continuity parameters right is definitely an important part. The third one is about embracing working from home. Now, it's not a new phenomenon. It has existed in some parts, but it was always considered to be a nice to have rather than a must have. But switching over in our own context as well, Tata Communications moved from almost 5% to 95% working from home. Now, many organizations went through the same dynamics, and it's not as if tomorrow morning everybody is going to start working from home only as we emerge out of the lockdown or in the future. But the balance is going to shift more towards working from home because of the inherent benefits in terms of saving the time on travel, pollution control, control of costs at the offices, lesser costs when you work from home, better productivity, etc. So embracing working from home is definitely going to be an important part of the way we leverage IT infrastructure. And last but the most important, at any point of time, we want to make the rupee work twice, thrice for us, which means you continue to optimize cost in the operations, in the skills, in the way you handle all the parts of the technology. As we move ahead, what does this mean in a security context? There is definitely going to be a lot more focus on zero trust security. Now, in the past, we used trust and verify, but now with our distributed presence across the cloud, some of the instances on your data center, some of the instances which you're using from the SaaS services that you leverage, and some instances on cloud, what have you. It could be public cloud, it could be a hosted infrastructure, etc. Suddenly you realize that the data center as the center of the IT universe has changed, and you've got a much bigger IT estate. Now, trust and verify in this kind of an environment may lead into performance issues as well as into authentication issues. But looking at zero trust in this context is becoming extremely important, and how much and how far you take this is going to define the way organizations succeed. Now, that would mean you need to provide granular access permissions to all your remote users. Now, Gartner has also written a white paper called SASE, Secure Access Safe Edge. Clearly, they are also pointing to the absence of a perimeter in future. We are living in a boundaryless, perimeterless world, which means we've got to transition to identity as the new perimeter. Every user who accesses the infrastructure from wherever, that point becomes your perimeter, which means trust and verify is not going to work. Zero trust network. How far do you provide the access? What sort of access permissions do you want to give them? And as you move along, you need to have a certain level of user performance analytics, user entity behavior analytics, and to be able to understand whether you have spurious access from a user which does not match the analytics patterns that you have. Because there are two aspects. One is there could be someone who has broken into the infrastructure, or second thing is there could be an insider behavior change. Insider threats are mentioned to be one of the most important challenges that organizations have to contend with. So UEBA, as we go along, is going to gain a lot more importance. And last but most important, user awareness as they work from home in terms of what sort of infrastructure do they need to use, what sort of safeguards do they need to have. For example, the router at their home may not be conducive for the security parameters that the organization has defined. So user readiness and training for that is going to be extremely important. So this is from a very suggestive security dimension. When we switch over to the cloud, the benefit of the cloud needs no more elaboration. I think everybody understands that the way to go is cloud. Cloud first has been the mantra for various companies. But as you move towards cloud, the first phase of leveraging the consumption from a collaboration point of view is now happening, where all of us are working from home. We are using these kind of collaboration tools to engage with our employees as well as our ecosystem. But as you go further, how do you bring a lot more native cloud architecture, whether it is from containerization or from DevOps or building the right kind of microservices architecture for getting all your applications to perform at the best levels, to have the right kind of seamless integration across all the applications that you have. Performance, agility, and scale is going to be extremely important. And how do you build this kind of an infrastructure as you go along in the future? And most important, disaster recovery can be stress tested in a cloud environment much better than when you have the physical infrastructure. So cloud first is just going to get a lot more momentum in the days to come. So when you want to do all this, what is the role that a good managed service provider can do? Clearly, the managed service provider gives you the complementing areas of performance that are required for the organization, be it in terms of skills or in terms of operational management or in terms of compliance management. It's going to be extremely important role that a managed services provider can give you in terms of supporting the organization. Expertise needs to be understood in a larger context. Skills are always going to play catch up with technology, the way technology is advancing. But a managed service provider with a larger pool of resources and the reach to the right kind of technologies would be able to buffer and manage the situation better. Second, scaling up and down of manpower in addition to the infrastructure becomes extremely important, and building the right kind of scale in all the processes as you automate and bring routine repetitive tasks into the automation area. Last, the cohesion and the compliances that you've got to bring with the broad suite of things that you use is going to be extremely important. So building the visibility of all the applications and the users, bringing the right kind of governance and operational parameters, and third, managing the compliance requirements of the organizations are three areas where a managed service provider can provide a very good complementing role to the organizations. And hence organizations are looking at how to leverage such partners in their business. At this point, I want to take you through a case study, which I'll try and cover in a short time, where this is a service that we provided to a leading beverage manufacturer in Europe. This company has got a presence in about 130 odd locations. And they wanted to, when they had a new CIO in the year 2016-17, they endorsed the mantra of cloud first. They wanted to move all their applications. They also wanted to relook at their SAP infrastructure. And most important, they also wanted the network to be transformed first. Looking at the gravity of this situation and the fact that they had 19,000 odd users, out of which about 1,500 users needed multi-factor authentication, given that they're going to be accessing from remote, we looked at the entire infrastructure requirement and we planned as to what sort of a transition is required. We looked at a network transformation story. We provided them the SD-WAN infrastructure for all their 130 locations. Second, we looked at implementing. They already had a small presence of Zscaler internet access solutions. So we looked at how do we scale that. Then we added a two-factor authentication solution to the customer. In addition, there were multiple firewalls that were needed. We put that security infrastructure together and built the building blocks of the solution after understanding their infrastructure, which took almost a two odd month exercise. And thereafter, in close consultation with the organization, we managed to scale this and put all the 19,000 users on this new infrastructure, with the whole project taking about 6 months. And as competition, we had one of the leading IT services players from India. We had one services provider in Europe, and we also had one of the leading telco in the Europe continent. But against all their proposals, ours was chosen for the way we built them as modular solutions, and we were able to look at it from a customer pain point perspective, and we were able to give the solution in the best possible time. Here is an example closer home. Right now, TCS, at the time of this COVID challenge, they had to implement multi-factor authentication for one of their customers, international customers, and they approached us, and we were able to roll out a secure remote access solution, multi-factor authentication solution for them with a virtual UTM as well in the shortest possible time, so that their infrastructure was up and running and they were able to implement what was needed for their remote customer despite the time of the lockdown. So this is another example closer home. So as you look at what you need to do as we go along, this is just a broad build-up of what we have to offer as Tata Communications to you. As we go from bottom to the top, starting from the network layer, there needs to be a network transformation as you look at the cloud first world. And thereafter, the next stage comes, what sort of an infrastructure do you want to have? What is the real IT estate that you have? And what sort of a spread do you have across physical and virtual infrastructure? Then comes point professional services that needs to go on top of it. Thereafter comes monitor, manage, keep it running, and build the operations, which is the managed services layer. In addition to that, in close conjunction comes the security area that needs to be focused on. And thereafter comes the layer of orchestration, analytics, etc. And we also have capabilities around application modernization and microservices architecture. So as you look at this kind of an integrated framework, the first area is the cloud. And just look at this slide. It could be from a physical infrastructure in your premises to a co-located infrastructure in a service provider, or it's a managed infrastructure with the service provider giving you the managed services, or it could be a private cloud instance with some service provider, or it could be one of the public cloud providers, whether it is Azure or Amazon or Google. And you're also looking at the kind of analytics platforms, because most customers today, most of our customers tell us that understanding their customer buying pattern and buying behavior is the biggest determinant for the success of their business. So as you look at the spread of this cloud infrastructure, to be able to manage all this from a single pane of glass is becoming the most important challenge that typically multi-cloud environment customers face. And that is where the ISO Cloud Command solution that we provide gives you a full view of all that is happening across your infrastructure and adopt the right kind of orchestration and management services that are required for the infrastructure. So this is from a cloud perspective. And when you look at it from a security services point of view, at a simplistic level, when you have the right kind of network, a DDoS attack or a UTM requirement on the network infrastructure is the first step. And as you move along, understanding the variety of threats across the entire infrastructure, understanding the threat management, getting the right kind of threat intelligence and be able to operate on that and provide the right kind of reaction or containment strategies that the organization will need to adopt in the event of a ransomware attack. Moving from there into cloud security, as I talked about earlier, we've got a very big sprawl of virtual machines across the physical to the virtual space. And to provide the right kind of tools that are able to provide you either the internet access or the proxy access into your environment, or be able to manage the infrastructure across this cloud with the right kind of security tools becomes important. Then comes the endpoint parameter, because today endpoints are the biggest points of entry for all the rogue actors. And to build the right kind of access controls and the policy implementation becomes critical. And then looking at other tools, whether it is deep and dark web monitoring or brand monitoring, where you want to pull down the sites if required and stuff like that. And beyond that, looking at a much broader secure management and detection of all your activities that's happening across your network and build the right kind of response becomes a full 360 degree in terms of what your cloud security partner will be able to provide. In addition, we've also added now OT security elements into our offerings. And as we speak, we are building the capability of building that into a robust practice, whereby it's not just the IT infrastructure, but it is also the process control as well as your other instrumentation that could be impacted by ransomware attack. So in summary, Tata Communications will be able to think through the contiguity from the network to the cloud and building the right kind of security across the entire infrastructure. So this balance that we are able to provide gives us a unique vantage point in terms of engaging with our customers to provide the most comprehensive solutions as you begin to relook, reimagine, and restructure your businesses for the environment of tomorrow. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thanks a lot.